Two Britons, Aidan Aslin and Sean Piner, have been sentenced to death alongside Moroccan national Sadoun Brahim. They appeared in a court in the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic held by pro-Russian rebels. Both British men were serving members of Ukraine's armed force. The UK government, however, said it is deeply concerned by the death sentences handed to the Britons. According to Downing Street, "We have said continually that prisoners of war shouldn't be exploited for political purposes. Under the Geneva Convention, prisoners of war are entitled to combatant immunity and they should not be prosecuted for participation in hostilities." Foreign Secretary Lee Strauss said the court verdict was a sham judgment with absolutely no legitimacy. Aslin, 28, and Piner, 48, and Moroccan national Brahim have been found guilty of being mercenaries and taking action towards violent seizure of power. And as the Russia-Ukraine war enters its 106th day, let's take a look at other developments. Russian forces control most of the strategic city of Severodonetsk, we hear, and are heavily shelling the twin city of Lysychansk, causing major damage. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky said the fight for Severodonetsk was a very brutal battle, very tough, perhaps one of the most difficult throughout this war, and said it is where the fate of Donbass region is being decided now. Meanwhile, in Mariupol, a mayoral aide in the city says 50 to 100 bodies have been found in many of the devastated high-rise buildings that are being searched, calling it an endless caravan of death. Mrs. Zelensky said that Russia will not join negotiations to end the war at present because Russia can still feel its power. Russia, however, has claimed that Ukraine had suffered heavy personnel losses in Donbass and is recruiting more foreign mercenaries, while Ukraine's side, the situation on the front lines of the ongoing conflict had not changed much. Russian Defense Ministry spokesman Igor Kanashenkov said that more than 300 armed Ukrainian fighters were killed in the three-day fighting in Svyatogorsk in Donetsk alone. On the same day, Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said to replenish personnel, Ukraine is hiring more international mercenaries. According to data from Russian Defense Ministry, more than 6,500 mercenaries from countries including the United States, Britain, Israel, Poland, Canada, and the Czech Republic had arrived in Ukraine, and the number had almost halved by early June. Zakharova said U.S. private military companies had played a part in hiring the mercenaries for Ukraine, with the targeted recruits including refugees and members of extremist groups from Afghanistan. According to a report of Ukraine State's news agency, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said in a video speech that the situation on the front lines had not indeed changed very much. He said Russia is deploying more troops to the Donbass and Kherson regions. Well, staying with Moscow, the Kremlin said it does not expect Gazprom to cut gas supplies to any more European customers, adding that its scheme to make buyers pay for their gas in Russian rubles was functioning as intended. Gazprom has cut supplies to some European countries for refusing to cooperate with a new payment system set up in response to Western sanctions. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov also said that no agreement had been reached with Turkey on exporting Ukrainian grain shipments across the Black Sea, and that work was still continuing. Turkey has been pushing for an agreement between Russia and Ukraine on a plan to resume grain exports from Ukrainian ports, although prospects for a deal currently looks dim, with each side blaming the other for disrupting global food supplies. Well, to talk more about the situation in Ukraine, VOA's Anna Chernikova joins us right now from Kyiv. Hi, Anna, it's good to see you. What's the latest on Severodonetsk?
Good evening. Situation remains extremely difficult. We cannot say so. According to official comments and official information that we have receiving, that situation is not changing much. So the fightings are happening on the streets, so street by street, house by house. Ukrainian forces are trying to either take over, liberate, and defend, or Russians are trying to attack. So it's like, back and forward, back and forward. So basically, block by block, Ukrainians are defending certain territories, and Russians take them over again. And this is just street fightings which are happening. In his latest speech, President Zelensky said that this is this battle will basically determine the fate of the east of Ukraine, and of course, everyone understands that it's extremely important city, extremely important, location for the army. We know that most of the city is under Russian control, but again, no advances for the past couple of days. However, Ukrainian officials were saying that they are expecting a certain strengthening of the Russian forces, and they were expecting another huge assault. It didn't happen yet, so we'll see. Maybe it will happen a bit later, or it will not happen. But for the moment, unfortunately, city is just turning into ruins. Russian forces just destroy all the civilian objects they basically have on their way. They don't really try to keep civilian areas. And unfortunately, we can say that situation is, in terms of all these damages, similar to Mariupol. Ukrainian forces still control the industrial part of the city. It's industrial part of the Azot plant, chemical plant, and I would say this is something like 20, maybe 25% of the city. So situation is very tough. Situation is very difficult. Situation is not stable. So we cannot say, that now it's the same as it was half an hour ago. Very heavy fighting going on, and for the moment, Severodonetsk is just the battlefield.
And I was also going to talk about people still being stuck in that city. Is there a possibility of the evacuation or delivery of humanitarian aid to the city?
We know that at least 10 to 15,000 people, so more or less 10,000 people, let's say, are remaining there, and they cannot evacuate for now. So for the moment, evacuation is not possible, and any humanitarian logistics is not possible because of very intensive shelling. So the road which allowed to evacuate or to bring humanitarian aid it remains under Ukrainian control, but it's under constant shelling from Russian side. So it's not safe, and basically it's not possible to use it at the moment. So for the past couple of days, evacuation was not happening. We know that residents, the relatives of those who remain in Severodonetsk, they asked to continue evacuation, and of course, Ukrainian government and local officials of the Luhansk region would do this as soon as they can, do it safe. Well, at least with minimal, safety guarantees, because for the moment it's just a suicide move if they do. So people, it was evacuation organized by Ukrainian government, by the local government in particular, when it was possible. So a lot of people left the city through this corridor, and using this evacuation service, let's put it this way, that was arranged for them. But a lot still wanted, quite a lot, 10,000 still wanted to stay at home, and for the moment, unfortunately, they would just have to hide, because it's just shelling 24/7.
We can begin to imagine the conditions, but let's look at Mariupol and what we're learning, that hundreds of bodies were found in destroyed buildings there. What more do we know?
When the city was, when the Ukrainian defenders were still in Azovstal, and we were receiving a little bit more information than now. Even then, that time back to that time, we knew that at least 22,000 civilians are dead, and it was just preliminary, and it was very very preliminary number because, of course, no one can confirm or say for sure because everything is just ruined and ruins are everywhere. And of course, Ukrainian government were saying that unfortunately a lot of bodies would be found when all these ruins would start to be removing. So we hear time to time, and it's not only today or yesterday that uh, during this process that buildings, all these ruins are removed, there are bodies in there. And unfortunately, really unfortunately, this is what will going to happen for the next probably months, is because, as I already said, 90%, as we already know, 90% of Mariupol city is destroyed. And it's just, one huge ruin. And I would just remind you that this, famous case that we discussed was drama theater, where a lot of children and women were hiding only there, according to official number. And of course, this is only what we can confirm through the intelligence service and through the satellites and through the information from the civilians who remain in Mariupol. Only there were at least 600 people found under the ruins. So you can just imagine, the scale. And yes, unfortunately, as I already said, this would continue for now.
It's a really staggering figures, but perhaps more cheery news, especially for the Ukrainian side. A schoolboy is hailed a national hero after using a toy drone to stop Russian troops. How did that happen?
This story comes up now. Actually, it happened a couple of months ago. So when Russian forces were still trying to get to Kiev, and it happened in one of the areas, Kiev areas, Kiev region areas. So this is a boy who had his personal drone. As far as we know, he's a son of a drone federation member, or even leader. So basically, this boy, he was into this, drone technique for since childhood. So he was quite good in this. And what we know that territorial defense basically asked him to help. And he pinpointed, so he just used his drone to make this fly around the area, because as he said in his comment, that he really didn't want Russians to get in his town, and he wanted to also defend Kiev city and his own town as much as he could. So he just used his drone to make a fly. And when he did it, he saw the convoy, the Russian military convoy. He pinpointed their location, transferred it to the armed forces, and the armed forces of Ukraine destroyed it. So this is basically the story. And yes, he's our little hero, another one.
Wonderful to hear. But is it also true that Russian forces left a message, a sort of "I'm sorry" message for pupils at a school north of Kiev, and this is after withdrawing from the region last month?
This is what was found out in one of the areas, next to Kiev. So basically, this was one of the battlefields. Quite difficult, area in terms of the fightings, and this school is basically almost completely destroyed. Really, very bad damages. I mean, we can see, like some parts of the walls are just removed. Just destroyed, and they're not there anymore. So basically, this school would need a complete restoration. And inside of one of the classrooms, we really see as the message, basically, we're sorry to leave this mess. And we hope that you guys would would grow up and become, like medical workers, engineers, and on and so forth. So basically, this kind of message, it's really, quite
ironic.
Yeah, I mean, this is true. I mean, quite an ironic and very, huge contrast, because you see the ruins of the school, you see and hear all these stories, you just experience all the stories that Russian army is destroying schools, destroying cultural centers, destroying museums, churches, burning down Ukrainian books, and then this kind of message as well. Maybe it's ironic. Maybe these people really wanted to leave something like that, but to me it looks a bit ironic because they just destroyed the school.
And talking about grains, has there been any agreement reached? Turkey is trying to weigh in. Africa has also tried on the Ukrainian grain exports between the Black Sea, Russia, and Ukraine.
Well, we know that yesterday it was a meeting of Mr. Lavrov with Turkish side. We know that Ukrainian representatives were not there, so we only know that there is official reaction. Basically, according to Mr. Lavrov, he said that Russia is absolutely fine and Russia is not basically seen any problem of allowing the export of the grains. So this is kind of what he announced. Basically, what was under the discussion that Russia would allow these grains to get out, and Russia wants Ukraine to demine this territory, the port. So the official reaction of this negotiation of Turkey and Russia that happened yesterday, in short, is like, well, Ukraine do not trust Russia, and this is what the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said. Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine also mentioned that, taking into consideration that Russia started this war, unprovoked war, and that because of Russia, basically, these grains are still in the port and could not be exported normally. Ukraine, of course, is very interested in going through and going forward and let these grains out. But Ukraine would not trust Russia. And to do the exports, Ukraine wants guarantees, military guarantees from the partners. So basically military control of the area by third countries who would, by using their Navy forces to, for defense and for, control defense, and also Ukrainians would ask for defense equipment, Navy, again, for the Navy area to.
Oh, there, we seem to have lost Anna there. A VOA's correspondent joining us from Kyiv. And staying with what Anna has been talking about, let's go to this story about the cost of living crisis haunting the world. It says surging prices on food, energy and fertilizer amid the Russian-Ukraine conflict. This according to a United Nations report. It says the Global Crisis Response Group issued its second report on the impact of the war in Ukraine on food, fuel and finance sectors, indicating that under the impact of COVID-19, warfare and climate change, about 1.6 billion people from 94 countries are facing food, energy or financial crisis. It says 3/4 among them live in countries extremely susceptible to such crisis. The UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, said that 3 months into the armed crisis, food prices are at near record highs. Fertilizer prices have more than doubled. Not a single country can escape from the living cost crisis, he stressed. Mr. Guterres urged all sides to look for a peaceful solution to the ongoing Russian-Ukraine conflict.
Still stockpiles that could be released, and the OPEC decided to increase their production. Yes, that will also relieve some of the pressures on the market.